I just spent 5 hours getting ink, so yeah. So today we are doing the September Q&A for r/GettingBigger. But before I get into it, I have a Patreon if you want to support the cause. There might be open coaching spots, no promises. Peak male physique for penis enlargement aids that are not needed but can help. And there's more to come in the future, so stay tuned. So let's just get into it. Disclaimer, I only briefly looked over these questions, so if I'm stammering a decent bit, that's because I'm thinking. So Scribblex ask an honest review of the Total Man Ultimate Package, especially with the new design. Any thoughts on M9's new product line? Alright, so I did reach out to Mike. He should be sending me the entire kit eventually. I have to make sure he's still doing that. But be on the lookout for that. It's going to be unbiased. I'm not going to be doing any affiliate links or anything like that. I don't believe in them. So what you hear from me is just the honest truth. Currently, I have my reservations on the plastic extender frame, as plastic is much weaker than metal, obviously. So that's something you need to be wary of. But it's a solid price point. I want it to be a good kit, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. As for M9's development, I've also reached out to him. I am just trying to get free shit from everyone. Hopefully he'll send me one. I like where he's going with it. It's just right now I think it's a little too cost prohibitive for the target audience, right? Because it's about $110 for a clamp. Assuming most of you guys are young guys, right? Probably in college. I did not have enough money to spend $110 on a potential medical device like that. When I was in college, I had $400 a month to spend, mostly on groceries. So that's my main concern with that. M9 knows what he's talking about. M9 knows what he's doing. I just think at his current price point, it's going to be hard for him to reach the full audience. But I could be wrong, so we'll see. And obviously, the more people buy it, the lower the price can come down, economies of scale, all that jazz. But that looks promising. I'll let you know when I get it, if I get it. You guys can yell at both Mike and M9 to send me shit, and then I will review. Also, on another product review, a penis pump drop shipping company essentially is reaching out to me to do reviews on their products as well. I'm a bit lazy and haven't got around to looking at their product line, so I might just post on Reddit and tell me what you guys are interested in, and then I'll do a review on that. I think that's FoughtW75 ask about, can you talk a little bit about the strain rate, aka strain percentage from or post-workout, the stress strain curve, and discuss it if you think it's worth tracking, even if you are not using ultrasound and heat conjunction. I'm very curious to know if you think a growing bone-pressed stretch flaccid length will eventually become a cemented bone-pressed erect length gains, and how long, if so, before they catch up and become solid or permanent. Okay. And then he goes into talking about Kerpa on Thunder's place and how he uses heat. And that's another can of worms. I'll get into it after this. But first, I briefly brought up strain rate before I went to Cabo for a bit of a break. Essentially, when we are talking about soft tissues and bones for the matter, there is a certain amount of strain that you can put on these tissues, right, before they snap. Yes, there's going to be a lot of uhs, so apologies. Based off of how long this tissue stretches compared to its normal relaxed length can give you a good estimate on how much strain you're putting on these said tissues, and then in a certain range you can expect tissue adaptation. If you go too high, however, you're more likely to get scarring and fibrosis. Same thing. Edema and fibrosis. So there's a fine line that you do not want to cross. from what I've seen looking into something called Davis Law, or Davis's Law, I'm not sure on the grammar for that, it is 104% of the soft tissue's length. So if we're talking about penises, since it is a soft tissue, if you are 6 inches long, you want to be stretched to about 6.3 to 6.4 inches when doing your length exercises. Yes, this overcomplicates it a bit. However, it gives you a good idea of how much tension you need. As for bone press stretch length becoming bone pressed erect length games, first you need to think that we are pulling on a tube, right? And it's elastic. So when you have an erected girth with it, it's going to decrease how much you can actually stretch. However, your glands inflate, and that should also offset that a good bit. If you're like me, it's about 1-to-1 currently. So if your bone press stretch length is, say, like over 1/4 of an inch longer, that's a pretty good sign you need to add girth work, because essentially that means your blood holding tissue is not pushing out at max capacity. Therefore, you either need stronger blood holding tissue or just more of it. And that way your tunica can reach full rigidity when erect, therefore making you reach your max erect length. Also, some guys will just bow out more when erect. So when they're doing girth work, or their girth would actually benefit more from the bone press stretched length than the bone press erect length would. I hope that makes sense. And it's really a crapshoot to know how long it takes for this adaptation to happen. I would suggest it would take about 2 months after adding in girth work for it to close the gap, so to say. Basically, another question from Fout W75. I'm diving down the rabbit hole of tracking strain rate after every hanging workout. I'm currently not doing any full-blown type of heat method, but I plan to pull the trigger on an ultrasound machine, but I'm already tracking strain now after every hanging workout. I'm not sure exactly how you're doing that. Curious to know if ultrasonic heat would be applied would be a better way to predict future gains. So I don't even know how effective heat really is. So yeah, collagen melts at about 106 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's technically tissue degradation that you need for growth. But M9 made the argument that actually heating the tissue doesn't break up the fibrils, and that's what's actually causing the elongation and growth of the collagen tissues, because it's not signaling the repair needed, basically. So that's why I've been kind of staying away from heat. Like, I'll use heat when I'm pumping and stuff just because it helps with blood flow, but trying to melt your tissues into a certain shape probably isn't the best way to go about it, and that's why I'm not a huge fan of the Kerpa ultrasound heat method. I tried it out for a bit, it just took too long, so yeah, that's the main reason why I don't do it. It just takes too long to get up to the temperature and then hang right afterwards. And then you actually have to forge it like steel, so essentially you got to dip it in something really cold for it to flash freeze into that position. Yeah, so it kind of overcomplicates it more than really it is worth the effort. Slow Exit 767 asks, is silicone caps better than taping? Do you need to create a vacuum in a vacuum hanger if it stays in place without the vacuum? So first, the only time I ever got a blister was with a silicone cap. Your mileage may vary, but I don't even tape. So, and this is because it creates a better abrasion force to cause the micro damage to the skin to cause the blister. Second, you should tape usually, and I think it's easier if you tape erect and then go into the bell. Soft, obviously, because then that tape is more evenly applied and not compressing into the skin when you are erect. Do you need to create a vacuum in a vacuum hanger if it stays in place without the vacuum? It depends on how much weight you are doing. If you are doing more than, let's say, 3 pounds of tension, I think you're going to want the vacuum, because it's going to create a vacuum on its own, so you might as well have it controlled. Fill out the bell before you have any possible swings in pressure. Doc Hank asks, Are there any ideas you've had on PE that you completely changed your mind about? What are they, if any, and why? Let's see. Well, I used to be against soft clamping because I just listened to what people said instead of thinking for myself. And that seems to be the complete opposite of the correct answer. So that's one thing for sure. I wouldn't say my mind really changed on anything. It's just my reasoning behind it changes because basically at the beginning of this year is when I really started to dive into the science and try to figure out why the things work the way it does. And a lot of the stuff that I thought I knew well did not necessarily match what the science was saying. Even though it was effective, it wasn't for the right reasons. The one thing I wish I never really did was talk about hormonal PE. And that's just because people are dumb, people don't listen to warnings, and it's going to cause them a headache. But at the same time, I did warn them, and I don't like leaving knowledge hidden just for the sake of safety. So yeah, that's one of my only few regrets with this. Most of my regrets come from my growing pains as a human, as I guess an influencer. Like, there's a lot of situations where I think I could have handled better if my ego didn't get in the way, and that's something I've been striving hard to work on in the past month and a half. I didn't read the last thing, I'll get to it. What PE theories do you think are total bullshit but still relatively mainstream? Anything Bathmate says. That's the main one. I think since they are so effective at marketing, and I will credit them that, they knew exactly what to do and how to get the biggest market share they could. The problem is their theory sucks ass, and now everyone has to unlearn it, learn basically our methods. Not even our methods, but the evolution of proper PE, rather, and go from there. I think anything with extenders is misguided. So like anything over 4 hours of extender wear is absolutely pointless. If you need to wear it that long, you're not getting enough tension to really see growth anyway. And you heal at rest. So anything for an all-day stretcher is stupid, in my opinion. You don't need to heal in an elongated state. The tissue's going to build up regardless as you tear it down over and over. I know you don't like when I say tear down and damage. It's stimulus and so forth, but old way of thinking, gotta work on it. Those are the three main things: the extender wear, bath mates, and then all-day stretchers. All of them don't really match my current thinking, essentially. And Hank, I think you fell victim to my number one fan. This is when you were asking about why the fuck do people from Thunder's Place act like they're the ultimate resource for all things and are so fucking pretentious. Like I said, I don't think this guy's actually from Thunder Place. I think this troll is just trying to get a rise out of us. And that's okay, because we are bigger men. We control our actions. He is being controlled by his emotions for whatever hate he has for us, and therefore he lacks free will. And therefore we should pity him because he cannot get his own head out of his ass. I don't think Thunder's Place is a bad place. I think this guy is just trying to start shit between us and try to make us seem like the bad guys. My only issue with Thunder's Place is that it just needs some housekeeping. There's a lot of old, potentially dangerous stuff on Thunder's Place that could get someone hurt. But that's the nature of forums. And that's one of the reasons why we have this Reddit. When it is easier to control the information when it comes from one or two sources. So like me and you, for example, it is much easier to say, hey, what I said a year and a half ago was stupid, don't do it, rather than having a moderator go through and double check these old posts. That's my only issue with Thunder's Place. I don't think they're the root cause of the crap we get, because I think we'd be getting more crap more often from other people. And on top of that, a lot of these older heads, they take identity and pride in what they did in the past. So like, remember when someone got pissed that we don't teach jelking and side to sides anymore? Well, that's because they learned specifically under those methods. And when we attack those methods, essentially, we're essentially attacking their own success in a way, and that's why they get a little defensive about it. So I don't really have a problem with it. I think me and you both can do a little bit of a better job of making any personal attack on us a teachable moment for others, because a lot of times there is a bit of truth to what they say. Like when they say I'm fatter than I look or fatter than what I state, and then I can actually talk about X, Y, I look like this, B, where I could be wrong, and so forth, and it makes me a better person being able to help others. That was a long-winded answer, and I'm just gonna move on. _G Gravy, excuse me, 69 asks, will pumping make me more vascular? Where's my drink? More than likely it will. It really depends on your own predisposition for superficial veins. I am not super veiny in general, but the veins that I do have got bigger. If you have a lot of them close to the surface, it's going to be way more apparent as your vascularity improves. Most of this stuff, aside from length work, will improve vascularity a ton, because that's just the nature of it. You're literally teaching your penis to hold more blood, therefore it needs to be able to pump more blood out. Those veins need to get bigger. Relentless LOV ask, will wearing a passive girth sleeve affect girth gains if worn after girth and length training? I don't know what a passive girth sleeve is. Like if you mean like an all-day stretcher, it will not help girth, more than likely. There is an argument to be made it would help length, but I do not subscribe to that theory. If you're talking about Total Man's new sleeve, I really don't know the point of it. I guess it's to keep your tissues warm and then elongate it at the same time. And that might help, but again, I don't see the point in it. And I'll go over that in a review of that stuff. Dale _Carnegie ask, I have a persisting lymphocele for over a month now. I've tried to massage. Yeah, I tried to massage Hank made a post about for treatment and prevention of a lymphocele, and it didn't prove helpful. I was advised to just leave it alone and rest. For the past 3 weeks, I have avoided anything that might worsen it, PE, yet it is not getting better. I'm gonna be honest here, this is a bit out of my wheelhouse. I never really had to deal with lymphatic issues. I have a piss poor swell response in general though, so that's probably the reason. So for those unaware, a lymphocele is basically when one of the drainage pipes in your penis gets blocked and then it builds up with lymphatic buildup. So just general junk and edema. Essentially, you just gotta let it clear itself on its own. From what I've seen, is it going to take 6 to 8 weeks, and you're only halfway through that period. So be patient. And I think someone commented that you should probably go to a doctor. I would say wait another week or two and then go to a doctor. And then he'll probably give you either some steroid to help expand those lymphatic channels, or he'll tell you to leave it be because it's really a non-issue. Like, it probably doesn't impact the performance. It's not painful. It's just unsightly, unfortunately. And I don't want to say you might waste your time going to the doctor, but that might be the answer you get. I wish I could be more help for you. Badminton 414 asks, can you make an updated version of the intermediate manuals routine? Maybe. I have not looked at updating the routines. I know that. I'm a busy guy. I think they need updated. I'm not sure. That definitely will be when we finally migrate all that stuff over to its own proper website. So it might be a couple months, it might be a year, but eventually it will happen. So Wonderful Store 8685 asks if manuals, if done in the most correct way possible, the person can maintain a consistent 10 pounds of force in every direction with strong grip, and he doesn't care about pulling it for 1 hour 2 times per day. Do you think manuals replace vacuum and compression hanging for the 1-3 protocol? You've mentioned already tension is tension, but there's a big old PE school that there's nothing better than hanging for life kings. Yeah, it would work. Your grip is going to be sore as fuck, but it will work. There's no reason it wouldn't. It might even be more effective because if you do what I've recently posted about and apply pressure at the base as you pull, you are essentially applying tension directly to the shaft, causing better elongation than typical hanging of the shaft, at least. I just think you were better off getting a device for that endeavor. Need at least ask, if I measure on top the center of my dinger, it measures 0.3 less. If I measure on top from left to right by 1 millimeter, does that mean my dick is being held back by tight ligaments? No, that means you are measuring on your ligaments when you measure dead center. Because think about it, it's going to stick out a bit because it kind of U's out. So you're putting it directly in that U. If you go move to the side a bit, you'll miss the ligament. Now, I'm assuming most research studies on size avoid the ligament and go straight to the bone. That's why it's called bone pressed, not ligament pressed. So keep that in mind. What I do is I line the ruler up with my urethra, and then I never hit my ligament. So Clint, we ask, he has a curve to the left, but not sure if it's from an overly tight circumcision or pushing my bones against the same side of my pants every day in high school. The tunica feels different on the left. I have made progress straightening it over the past few years. Is tunica malleability the only way to keep it straight? Can you just demonstrate the use of the massage gun? I've tried it, but it doesn't really feel like anything. Well, I can't do that on YouTube. And I feel like there's already video going out about it. But essentially, you do have some form of Peyronie's. I'm not even sure if it's Peyronie's at this point. But you do have some form of plaque buildup on the tunica. And that's why you're curving to the left. And that's why it feels stiffer on the left. Your best bet is semi-erect bends, and fulcrum stretches the opposite way. You don't necessarily need to use a massage gun on it. And yeah, it's going to be time intensive. That tissue is tough and strong, and you need to slowly break it down over probably a course of a year to get it fully straight. If you want a pretty dick, you got to put in the work, dude. Pico08 says hello. Hi. Can you tell us something about your new observations regarding optimal length therapy? So, for those, my battery's about to die. Yay! Oh, hopefully that counts as my clap. Anyway, so my new length theory. It's not really an it's just an improvement, not really anything special. Essentially, I think we need a little bit of tunica malleability to fully exaggerate the lengthening effects, because this is a question on flexibility. If we slightly stretch these things in a direction that's not used to handling, you're going to get a better stretch response. So it's as simple as that. Breaks down the tunica a little more, gives you more oomph in your workout, essentially. And then I said you probably want to apply pressure at the base while you do length work if you're trying to isolate the shaft. This is just me playing around with my hands, seeing what feels better to me. And it makes sense. So if you push the ligament down, taking it out of the equation, then all your penis can do is handle the weight. There's no help. So therefore, you'll get a more effective gain. If you have strong ligaments, that might help you get past that. And then it also has the added benefit of stretching out the skin while you do your length work, so you don't have to worry about a big old turkey neck and base tenting from tight skin. I still need to figure out how to work it into the 1-3 protocol. That's not going anywhere. And I still need... And the theory on ligament training doesn't change at all. Yet. I think you just need to do it more often now. The more I talk about all the stuff I need to do, I'm getting a little depressed about it. But I'll get to it eventually. Alright, EmptyGate 8E31 asks, can you make a video about ED pumping? Not sure if Hank already saw a post I made in the thread on this. Could you please be specific as possible? I've seen comments saying do it every other day. Well, dude, it depends on what kind of erectile dysfunction you have. If you have pelvic floor strain induced ED, erectile dysfunction, then pumping is probably the last thing you want to do because it's going to put strain on those ligaments. Second, if you have mental blocks causing your erectile dysfunction, pumping really won't do anything to help with that. Now, if you have penile atrophy causing the majority of your erectile dysfunction, then that's when you should be pumping. And basically, I say 3 sets of 5 minutes every day. Get this tissue used to handling more blood than it already can, and then eventually it will get stronger. You won't be building up new mass per se, but the mass that you have will get much better at holding blood. Now, this process is going to take at least 6 weeks to get a decent bit of improvement. So, be in that for the long haul. But yeah, since we're not really straining the tissues at 3 sets of 5 minutes, you can do every day, no problem. Pulsing the pump is more for feigning an erection. So like if you have ED and are trying to get an erection for coitus, then that's when you want to pulse. Otherwise, I think you want to just keep it at static pressure, hold it for 5 minutes, release, because you're trying to teach your penis to hold more blood and to hold it for a longer period. Hope that helps you. Square Chair 9957 asks, if I get 20 P shots or more, what would happen? Well, the most I've seen documented was 6, or someone just said it on one of these forums, and he said he gained like 1.5 inches in length and 1.5 inches in girth. I don't want to say I believe him verbatim, but the math checks out. 1/4 inch each, or 1/2 inch each time. Wait, not even. Yeah, 1/4 inch each time over 6 sessions. That would be about a year and a half. It's definitely doable. Now, bumping it up to 20, if we assume it's 1/4 inch per session, you can do the math on that. How's that, 5-6 inches? I know I can do math, guys. Just not while I'm talking. So yeah, I think it'd be quite superfluous, and then it really also depends on how closely you stack these things together. From what one of my clients' doctors said is that you really don't want to have them closer than 6 weeks together, because then these tissues kind of just get desensitized to it, and then it doesn't really have a stacking effect. It kind of just oversaturates, if that makes sense. But yeah, if you're willing to spend, what, 20,000 on 20 shots, go for it. Let us know. Sounds like a pain in the ass to me, but... And then you also ask, what's your opinion about stem cells? Last study seemed promising. You would have to be more specific, because PRP is technically a type of stem cell research. Or if you're talking about the dick mouse from South Park, that's also quite interesting. So, and then Wide AD 1126 ask, can you explain the science between jerking off doesn't affect potential growth, especially if you're jerking off right after hanging or pumping session? Well, I'm a little bit of a sexual deviant, so I get off a decent bit, and I've gained quite a bit. That's my main reasoning. It doesn't really matter as long as you're not doing more than, let's say, 2 times a day. Because the main issue is tissue overwork. There is nothing special about when you masturbate. As long as you're not overworking this tissue, you're fine. Think of it as dick cardio. If you're doing 6 hours of cardio a day, you are going to lose muscle mass. Meanwhile, if you do, let's say 20 to 30 minutes of cardio every day, it's actually going to benefit your muscles, because you're clearing out your lymphatic channels. You are having a more robust heart, and your vascularity will increase passively. So I don't want to say jerk it often, because I know that can be an issue for some guys, but masturbating probably has a better benefit than a lot of these no-fap guys would state. And honestly, no-fap is a bunch of bullshit. Now, I know Hank doesn't like the idea of masturbating right after a session. I get it. This is uncharted territory. I'm not going to talk or disagree with him per se, but in my own experience, I've never had an issue masturbating right after pumping per se. I might have this really weird edema dick afterwards, but it hasn't affected my gains. Obviously, that's why I'm still here talking about them. So, yeah, I'm about to lose my voice, and that was the last question. So, I hope you learned something. Patreon, Peak Male Physique. Like, subscribe. More to come soon on the ways you can support me and Hank. This is Beatty signing off.